Okay, good evening everyone. Welcome to Tara House. Is anyone here tonight who's brand new? Okay, wonderful. Okay, there was an open day yesterday at Tara House, so quite a few people came through, so that was possible. Okay, for those, my name's John Wright, and this is the third Monday during November I've been doing this. So our starting point, as we've done the previous 2 weeks, is to look at our motivation for coming and to try and generate or build a motivation inside of us which has a wider or broader scope. And so that scope, we could have a sort of a smaller scope, was I'm just here to sort of feel a bit relaxed tonight, or you could sort of lengthen a little bit, so I want to be relaxed for the whole week, or for the rest of this year, or at least get through the terrors of Christmas or whatever else might be coming up. Or we could extend maybe for the rest of this life, something becomes better. My life becomes better. But also we can sort of go beyond that, because this life will come to an end. And if from Buddha's point of view we have a mind stream or consciousness which goes from one moment to the next, and our consciousness doesn't get destroyed. It separates from the time of death. We define death as the time when the consciousness separates from the body and goes on the next part of its journey. And our consciousness will carry the impressions of the things we've done during this life. And some of those impressions we've left in our consciousness will be really good, positive energy, and some of them may be somewhat different to that. Because we've all done dodgy stuff in our life, or things we regret. That's the long and short of it. So what we can do is we can extend a motivation that also when the journey of this life is complete and the journey of the next life or existence begins, that's also that's also something that's positive as well. So we have some focus in terms of a longer term goal. And then of course when you extend the goal more to think, well look, I'm just one individual. What about all the other people in my life at the moment, or even the people I haven't met that are around as well? Should I have, because they're exactly the same as me. Each one of us, we look at our existence or what we're doing in life. We're seeking to find happiness, and we're trying to avoid suffering or problems or difficulties. And every individual, no matter how they manifest their life or the sorts of things they do, the underlying motivation is that they're trying to find some sort of happiness and reduce the problems or suffering in their life. Now, some individuals don't do that in a particularly skillful way. They have what's self-destructive behaviour. Now, that's the sorts of things they do to try and find happiness really are the opposite of that. And we can look at really, really mundane type things. For example, someone's a smoker or drinks too much alcohol or gets involved in drugs. That's fairly obviously sort of destructive behaviour, either in terms of your physical health or in terms of your emotional or mental health as well. And so what we can do is think, well look, how about, let's have a super, super big motivation, is I could sort of work on, let's develop my own skills so I'm able to be more beneficial to others, and even sort of, somewhere along the line get to the point where I can actually guide other people to a life which is more fulfilling, more meaningful and more happy, and they have more inner resources to deal with their problems and transform those as well. So whenever any sort of activity we do, the sort of motivation that we have at the start propels that activity, if you like, and it has a major influence on the outcome of that activity. So just sort of for a moment, so just have a think about your motivation and see within our ability, if we can try to extend our motivation and make it a bigger one for the purpose of being here tonight to sort of hear about, about meditation, Buddhism, that sort of thing, and what we want to achieve by the time we walk out the door, if you like, in the future. So just take a moment to think about that. So hopefully now we've generated sort of a bigger or broader or better motivation, which will therefore give us help us to achieve a bigger goal, in the long term. And it's interesting, for example, if you want to do a trip somewhere, you could say, oh, look, I've got the desire to go to Seymour. And that's, but you don't. But if someone else says, oh, I want to go to Albury, on the way to Albury, you'll go through Seymour anyway and have the wonderful pleasures of Seymour on the way there. And of course, you could even go even think further, I want to go to this fabulous place called Sydney. Anyone like Sydney? I actually went to school there and university there, so I've got familiarity with it. I'm a foreigner in terms of Victoria. But yeah, on the way to Sydney, you pass through Seymour, you pass through Albury, Wodonga, Yass, Goulburn, all those other places on the way. So it's a little bit like with our motivation today. You might think, okay, why are we making this long-term motivation? Because on the way, all the other things are going to fall into place for us. So in other words, the happiness and well-being of tomorrow, next week, when we get old, if we do our future existence, etc., those things will start to fall in place for us. So that's part of it. So it's a little bit like you do a long trip. The places on the way happen anyway. Okay, now, last week, right at the end of last week, I started to talk about the idea of what we call this thing called Buddha nature or Buddha potential. And this, I guess, is looking at, okay, what's our inner potential? In which we've got a human life which has enormous potential. So we just say, okay, what is our actual potential? So what can we actually achieve in this life? And so in this life, we can see that if people put their mind to it, they can achieve enormous, say, material success. Or they can become quite famous, they can become quite powerful, they can become highly regarded, etc. They can have people that admire them, all those sorts of things. But those things will come to an end. So that's the external potential that or the material potential. We also have an inner potential as well. And I'm guessing most of us, when we've applied our mind to something, say for example, we look at us and say, look, I want to develop this particular quality or something like that, I want to become more patient or less irritable or something like that. And with some degree of awareness of how you're operating and working on that, you can develop those sorts of things within you, that sort of quality within you. So you can remove sort of a fault that you have within yourself and develop some qualities, whether it's the qualities of patience or love, or a little bit more wisdom or insight. We can develop those. So the next question is, okay, how far can we develop these things? Is there a limit to it or not? And so this comes to the idea of human potential. And for example, we can see examples of individuals that some of you may have met or seen in the media. For example, obviously His Holiness Dalai Lama would be a classic example of an individual who's got qualities that the ordinary being doesn't have. For example, also someone like Geshe Doga, the main teacher here. If you spend a bit of time with him, you'll see that'll sort of start to appear. And I can think of an old friend of mine, because Geshe Doga actually started in Israel, spent a year in Bendigo. There's one lady I know in Bendigo. Whenever she felt a bit down, what she would do is just go out to the centre and visit Geshe Doga. And she only wouldn't say much. She'd just sit with him for a while, and then she'd sort of pick up on his energy or whatever, and she'd go away feeling much better because she had that sort of physical presence, that sort of energy of being a person who's got highly developed qualities. That would sort of, permeate what was around, or other people, if you took the time to sit there and you could pick up on that energy yourself and walk away feeling better. Okay. So we've sort of got that potential, to gradually develop our qualities, our inner qualities, and to gradually reduce our inner faults, or we can use some technique like obstructions in mind or obscurations, etc. And so the question is, can we get to a point where there are absolutely no faults at all and we've developed all qualities? And the party line in Buddhism is, yes, we can do that. Now we can remove every single internal fault that we have. It's going to it'll take more than a few weeks, of course. And we can develop, gradually work on developing the positive qualities we already have. But as human beings, each one of us has qualities. We have some love and compassion already. We've got some, empathy and concern for others. We've got, a little bit of wisdom in terms of what's a good thing to do, what's not a good thing to do. We already do certain things. We don't go and kill people. We don't normally steal stuff. Those sorts of things. There's a whole range of qualities that's, good behaviours that we already do. But what we're doing is building on what we've got. Now, often what can occur for us is we can get bogged down in what's going on in our life. It can get a bit dark for us at times, or we get a bit tense or anxious or whatever, and we can lose sight of the big picture inside ourselves, that we do have this thing called Buddha nature or Buddha potential. So it's really good to remember that sometimes, is it's just to build so you keep your own sense of self-worth. Right? Because ultimately we you look at the people who are, how do we say, highly evolved or highly developed beings. There's a certain irony, irony in they've got rid of their sense of I, but they've also got a very powerful sense of self-worth. They know exactly who they are, and there's no closed-in, small-minded attitude about themselves at all. They're very, very different, incredibly different. And we've got the potential to be that way as well. So rather than we sort of got a relatively closed-in view of ourselves, we actually can have a more open view of ourselves. And we look at the nature of the mind. In Tibetan, the definition of mind is Sel Shing Ripa. Sel means light, or sometimes it translates as luminosity, and Ripa means awareness or knowing. So deep down within our mind, we've got awareness and light. And there's another word, ursa, which means clear light. So we've got this this is our fundamental nature at a deep down level. And so we can use the analogy, our mind's a bit like the sky, preferably not in a Melbourne winter, but more on a nice sunny autumn day or something like that, obscured by clouds, and it could be dark clouds or white clouds. But the sky's always there. And the same way the fundamental pure nature of our mind is always there. It's with us all the time. But the challenge for us is to be aware of that, or to start to get some insight or sense of that's our inner potential that we can develop and become better and better human beings. Now, if we use another analogy, if we look at the ocean, if you go swimming in the surf or whatever, the waves are coming in, so your total attention is focused on those waves coming in and crashing on you. And sometimes you're able to catch a wave, there's a bit of acceleration as you sort of ride in. Other times you get smashed and tumbled, or you get a wave that's not that exciting. But you're sort of focused on the waves in the ocean, nothing else. Now, the reality, of course, is there's much more to the ocean than a few waves near the beach. Especially if you go deeper into the ocean, further out in the ocean, and then the depths of the ocean, it's very vast, and it's very clear, and it's very deep. And there's no turbulence. If we're on the surface of the ocean, there's a lot of turbulence happening. And to some extent within our lives, we're sort of interacting with the different things in our life, the different sensory objects, what we see, hear, smell, taste, that people interact with our own thoughts. So there's often a lot of turbulence that we're getting, inner turbulence, that we're getting caught up in. And we lose track of the fact that there's something deeper there, which is still and deep and calm and clear and luminous and aware. And we lose track of that. So obviously with the process of meditation, we're trying to become more aware and connect more with that deepest part inside ourselves. And that's part of that process of meditation. So here often, for example, you just start with a really simple meditation, which is watching the breath. And we shut down a bit on our senses, so we tend to close the eyes a bit. We've got a nice quiet environment, so we haven't got heavy music go on in the background, or the clatter of crockery or cars roaring past. We've got a pleasant smell in here. We've got someone's probably lit a bit of incense somewhere on the line, but we've reduced the sensory stimulation. And then what we're trying to do is reduce the stimulation or the activity that's going on in our thought processes as well. And so we just sit calmly and we'll focus the mind on a single object. Because the nature of the mind is if we focus on one object, it's not going elsewhere. So we can pick an object like our breath passing in our nostrils. It could be the pure nature of our mind. That's a good object. But the problem is it's very difficult to find that object in your meditation, where it's very easy to become, yes, I can sort of feel my breath or sense my breath coming in and out. Or you can do a visualisation, for example, the image of a Buddha. For example, we've got a range of images of Buddhas here that represent or symbolise different aspects or qualities within our mind. So there's a whole range of objects that we can meditate on, but often as beginners the breath is a really good one, because the breath is always with us. It usually comes, it goes out. I'm very fortunate, it keeps coming back. Goes out, comes back, goes out, comes back. So we can just focus our mind on the rhythm of our breath coming in and out, and we're not trying to regulate our breath. Now, it's not a forceful sort of breathing. It's just a gentle breathing, sitting with our breath. And the interesting thing is, for example, if you sort of sit down one day and you've had an argument with your spouse or your kids or someone at work, your mind is agitated. And you can feel that agitation in your mind, you feel that agitation in your body, and it's also reflected in your breath as well. And what's interesting, if you sit still for a while and just focus on the breath, that agitation energy starts to settle down a bit. And then the breath becomes more smooth and becomes more refined or finer as your mind becomes more refined or finer. It starts to settle down a bit. And it's possible when you get more deeply practiced, that'll become finer and finer. And we then develop higher levels of concentration. And the stronger our concentration is, then the more calm our mind will be. Our body will also become more at ease. I am told if you develop what's called calm abiding, your body will actually have physical bliss. Like I said, I'm told that's the case. Geshe-Doga says that quite often. The traditional texts say that as well. And you'll have mental bliss as well. So the two things will go hand in hand. But even at the moment for us, what we can discover is that the body will relax more and the mind will feel calmer. And when we walk away, that energy of calmness will stay with us for a while. And it might be if you go outside and someone, what might have been disturbing to you before when you came in no longer bothers you because you've got a bit more space. Right? And so the mind's a little bit more open. So we're a bit more in touch with the ocean part of our mind rather than the turbulence part of the mind where the waves are crashing in. Now, another common analogy, which is very similar to what we just talked about, is if we have the mind's a little bit like muddy water, especially if we've got an agitated mind. Say agitated by thoughts, agitated by different emotions that are sort of running riot inside ourselves. And it's like muddy water. So normally if you get a stick and you stir up some water with some dirt at the bottom, it gets all mixed through, doesn't it? But if we take the stick out, we can watch the water, the dirt and stuff in the water, the sediment of the water, is gradually going to settle down, so you get back to clear water. And so that's, in many respects, that's a starting point for us in meditation, is to settle down that agitation, disturbance to some extent, so we've got some insight. Then once we've got some insight, all that sediment that's now sitting on the bottom, we can start to deal with and remove in terms of various forms of meditation that we might do. So I guess what's interesting is if we do meditation on a regular basis, and it doesn't need to be a mega amount, it might be even 5 or 10 minutes a day, but every day we start to build up a more positive habit within our mind stream, and it'll have a carryover effect in our day. So if in the morning time you sit and do a bit of strongly concentrated meditation, that energy can help carry you through the day. At night time, for example, when you go to bed, do a couple of minutes meditation before you go to sleep, so you calm yourself down. That energy then gets you through the night, so you wake up in the morning and you're sort of brighter and lighter and hopefully happier. You're ready to carry on the next day. Now what happens when we develop this very calm, still mind, we're able to see with a bit more clarity how our mind is operating, how it reacts to different things, whether it's different thoughts, things that happen at work or interaction with people, even the dog barking or someone dropping something, we start to develop insight. That insight, we can call it, it's wisdom. And that wisdom is our inner treasure. We've got our external wealth, which will is very useful for this life, but we need inner wealth or inner treasure or wisdom as well. And that's something we work on through formal sitting meditation. Then also once we finish our formal meditation, we try to be more aware of how our mind is working in different situations. So if I give a really, really simple example, one place I used to go shopping, it was very interesting, there was a lady there where every time at the checkout, who was unhappy. And that was fairly evident. And what I was noticing in my mind, once I'd been checked out with her a couple, thought, I didn't feel that comfortable. So I would then look for the other checkout people. I would start avoiding it. Is there another checkout person I can go to? And I could see that happening in my mind. Then after I thought, no, this is probably not so good. So then I started to say, well, let's make a conscious effort. I'll go to her and I'll see if I can give her a smile and just make her day a little bit brighter or happier. And so it doesn't work there anymore, but I did sort of try that. But that's a really, really simple example. It's, in terms, that's informal meditation as opposed to formal sitting on the cushion, and where you're aware of how your mind's working and then try to change that. So you're building your own, making yourself a better person and building your own inner treasure or wealth. And the more of that we have, that what goes with us for the rest of this life, especially when we get old and things get difficult. And I know my wife, for example, she's a massage therapist. She goes to an old massages a couple of old people. And there's one lady in particular she's been telling me about that she's not being looked after very well. But she can't communicate. And it's unbelievable suffering for her. And you hear about it, so it's just so sad. But, and I think this could potentially happen to us as well. And so the thing is, obviously, is we don't know what's in store for us in the future. So if we can do things to build our own inner wealth or treasure, that can help us when things in our life get difficult. Whether it's small difficulties or it's really, really big difficulties. When we've got the inner resources, hopefully, to go through those things in a better manner, more dignified sort of manner, or where we don't lose our mental stability. It doesn't get destabilised. Because at the moment, it doesn't take much for someone to say something to us, and our mental stability is really destabilised, and we get upset quite easily. That's really, really easy. I mean, it happens to me very frequently, but the thing is, we become aware of, this has made me unstable, has destabilised me, and you then say, okay, let's try and pull myself back and get myself to a point where I feel more stable. And I know, for example, some days, I might come home from work some days, and it's been really, really hard. I can feel absolutely shattered. Really, that's very occasional, that does happen. And for me, the only solution is I've just got to sit down and do meditation for 10 or 15 minutes to start to settle down that energy and sort of start to get away from that being shattered sort of feeling, regain some of my inner equilibrium. And that's, with practice, that we all of us can get better at that. And of course, remember, we've all got Buddha nature. So yes, we can get much, much better at it, but it may take quite a while. Okay, I've gone over time slightly, so we're going to do some meditation now, and then we'll do question and answer after that, if that's okay. So about 15 minutes of meditation. So if you need to wriggle and stretch, do that. I want you to be able to sit very still for about 15 minutes or so, and with a nice straight back. Because without being rigid though, but if you have a straight back, your mind will be more clear. If you look in terms of yoga, they talk about energy channels and stuff like that. So if you're hunched over like that, that's not so good. If your head's like that, that's also not so good. But just a nice straight back. Your head tilted forward ever so slightly, elbows out slightly so the air gets through, or a little bit of daylight. The hands, right hand on top of the left hand, thumbs touching, and if you look down, your thumbs will be looking above your second finger, and eyes almost closed, but a glimmer of light comes in, and then your tongue, the tip of your tongue will go, just touch the top of your top teeth. And that'll sort of regulate the saliva voice. Your mouth doesn't dry out too much, or you're not drooling as well. And then what we need to do is breathe in and out a little bit from all the way down to the tummy and back out again, okay? And just feel your abdomen going up and down, and the breath in and out. So we'll just do that a couple times. And then we'll do what we did last week, is we're going to imagine within ourselves any sort of negative energy or darkness energy or difficult energy that you have within us, any sort of emotional energy or even physical energy, is imagine that as dark light, black light. And it's going to gather together from all the extremities of our body and our mind to our heart, and then from our heart we're going to breathe out that dark energy in the form of smoke, dark smoke, out through our nostrils, and that smoke will go out to the end of the universe and completely disappear, never to come back again. So that'll be on the out breath. On the in breath, we're going to imagine white light. So white light representing universal wisdom and love and compassion, or the enlightened qualities, coming in through our nostrils and pervading every single part of our body and mind. And any negativity or tension that comes across, it will dissolve that, so that darkness disappears, the tension disappears, and it's replaced with light and lightness and clear awareness. So we'll do that about 7 times. Okay, so now we're going to focus our awareness on our breath, just the sensation of the breath passing in and out of the nostrils. And make sure we're breathing all the way down to the tummy and back out. And what you'll find is various thoughts will pop up in your mind, or physical sensations, etc. So the trick here is not to try and suppress these, because we can't. It's just a bit of mental energy that's arising. But just to be aware that it's arising and bring your awareness back to the breath, and that thought will dissipate if we don't feed it. The physical sensation, acknowledge this is a physical sensation, but again we don't feed it or get involved with it, we just accept it as it is. And so what should happen as we keep watching the breath is our mind should start become a bit more calm, a little bit more still. And our body hopefully become a bit relaxed as we go through this process. So just focus on the breath coming in and out, and we'll do that for about the next 10 minutes. Okay, so now we can take a moment or two to come out of our meditation. Okay, are there any questions? Yes. Okay, it can be as simple as just watching the breath for a while. It'll depend on this. I'm normally not going to try and, how do we say, rerun what happened, because that just keeps perpetuating that negative energy. But more I've got to, calm my mind down. So I'd probably start with just watching the breath and just try to allow myself to still and get some space. Well, that'd be the starting point. Yeah. Sorry? I'm on the deaf side, so I'm not picking up every word you said. So the question is, would I practice changing negative thought for a positive thought? So in other words, if there's anger, try and change that and swap that around so I'm generating love. Yeah, look, I have done that. There's a practice called Tonglen, or giving and taking, where you look at that individual there and think sort of, okay, this person's got suffering, let's see if I can take on their problems and give them some of my love in the form of white light, for example. And then when you take on their problems, you imagine that coming as dark light, and then that's sort of smashing your self-cherishing at your heart, and then opening up the light instead, which you then send out or give. So that'd be an example of something. You're exchanging, how do we say, a negative thought into a positive thought, for example, trying to use a positive thought to counteract some negative energy. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Just wondering why you don't close your eyes.
So you don't fall asleep. Look, if just a glimmer of light, but the reason we want to close it, shut off enough so that you haven't got things in front of you you need to close your eyes sufficiently so you haven't got an object in front of you that's distracting you. Right? Because what we're trying to do is shut down all the sensory perception as much as possible to simplify things. There are some meditations where people do have their eyes open. I must admit I haven't been taught those, but I can think of a friend of mine. He'd done a lot of retreat and was at a point where he's going through more advanced practices. So he was doing meditations in terms of the nature of the mind. And what Lama Yeshe used to do, and Lama Yeshe, one of the lamas in the picture, he told him is he took go outside, lie on his back and look at the sky. And so do this meditation, the space-like meditation, so the nature of the sky, the nature of his mind. So it was a meditation somewhere along those lines, for example. So that'd be a situation where you would have your eyes open. But he was this guy's a very, very good meditator. Extremely good. Other questions? Yes.
Can you tell us about Tara? Last week you talked about Buddha, but I'd like to know more about Tara.
Sorry, about Tara, did you? Yeah. Okay, so the question is, can I say something about Tara? Now, Tara is that big painting there, or the Tibetans will call it a tanka. And on the other side, there's another, the greeny or bluey-green tanka on the far side, which has 21 Taras. Tara is look, I guess with all these different tankas or deities we see, there's a symbolic aspect and there's also a historical aspect as well. The symbolic aspect, of course, they represent a quality we can develop within ourselves. But there is a story of Tara who made dedication that she would come back as a female and help beings. And so Tara represents the enlightened energy of active compassion. So you note she's got one foot that's out, which means activity. She's sort of stepping out into the world. She's green. Green is a colour, if you're looking at colour meditation, for example, that is used against jealousy or envy. You know how we talk about green with envy? So if you're doing Tara, I either Tara visualise in front of you, or if you've been given permission to practice, or they'll tend to use the Tibetan words Jainung, but often it gets mistranslated as initiation, then you can visualise yourself. How do you visualise yourself as Tara? So you try and dissolve your view of yourself and arise yourself, self-generate yourself as Tara, and you're trying to build that energy. And we all have some Tara energy already with this. And so it's this active compassion. It's also like the mother, Tara the mother as well. There's talk about this, compassion becomes one of the mothers of all qualities, etc. And going and being really active in terms of helping. But also if you want to achieve something or get something done, you do some Tara practice as well. So, but it's a very sort of gentle sort of energy, very soft, gentle energy. And if you're a bloke and you want to soften your bloke type energy, you can do some Tara practice. But it's good. It's good for everyone. And the Tibetan, Tara is a real favourite for Tibetans in general. And there's and all these different deities, they all have a mantra. So, for example, Tara's mantra is Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha, and there is a literal meaning, but more it approximates a vibration energy that we have inside ourselves. And if you recite that mantra a lot with concentration, that gets finer and finer and finer. And what will happen is it'll get to a point where it's in harmony. Your Tara energy is in harmony with that energy, and you start to build that energy within yourself more and more. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Okay. Does that answer the question? A little bit? You can actually buy, there are books on Tara. I know there's one lady's done a whole book on Tara. I can't remember her name now. Yes?
Talking about active compassion and replacing negative thoughts with positive ones, would you be willing to guide us in a really short meditation how you might start to do that?
Let me stop and think. You've caught me on the hop there. It's a good question. Look, to some extent, even with the visualisation I gave you at the beginning, I said, let's imagine all the negative dark energy in you and bring that to your heart first, then breathe it out. And then we breathed in white light. That'd be sort of a really simple sort of that'd be an example of that.
Yeah, I like that, something short like that.
Yeah, so you can certainly do something like that. If you, for example, you can, get some experts, someone like Geshe Doga gives you permission to practice in terms of Tara, although you can, an ordinary individual, say, visualise Tara in front of you and recite that mantra. Or Tibetans in particular love to practice Chenrezig, which in Sanskrit is Avalokiteshvara, that's the one there with the four arms. That's one aspect of Chenrezig. And Chenrezig is for compassion. So one version has 1,000 arms with an eye in each arm, so more arms to help people, more eyes to see people suffering. And the mantra for that one is Om Mani Padme Hum. And that's a really, 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 really easy mantra to remember, an easy one to say. So you'll find Tibetans, should you be trekking in Nepal, in the Sherpa areas in Nepal, for example, or you go to Tibetan villages like Dharamsala, for example, or something like that, or if you're fortunate enough, you might get to Tibet or Ladakh, you'll see, especially a lot of the older people who've got a lot of faith and devotion, are have got their little rosary things, and they're constantly reciting Om Mani Padme Hum, that mantra of compassion, sort of day in, day out. And look, over time it really does have effect. There's no doubt about it. If you keep reciting that mantra, and you can send out white light to other people, purifying them of suffering and stuff like that. That has an impact on ourselves as an individual, over days, weeks, months, and years, etc. It really does. And I can think of someone like Lama Zopa's mother. She was not educated, couldn't read or write, but she had enormous devotion. Enormous devotion. I think she used to recite something like 60,000 Chenrezig mantras a day. And by the time that she died, she went into what happens if someone's developed their qualities really, really well. At the time of death, you can sort of control what's going on. And so what's happening is that your gross consciousness absorbs into the central channel, and that will then absorb to your heart. At that point there, if you've got the power, or you've practiced, or you've got the devotion, you can sit in meditation, what's called clear light meditation, into your heart for a period of hours or days or even weeks. And while you're in that meditation, your body will not decay or decompose. And there's plenty of stories of meditators who have done that, whether it's been famous lamas or it's been people say like Lama Zopa's mum, or I can think of a lady, a French nun that I used to know. She kept a very low profile, stayed away from being one of the important people and wasn't too interested to study whatever, but she had enormous devotion, huge devotion, and said a lot of mantras, had a lot of faith, and she became very, very kind sort of person, developed huge amount of wisdom. But when she died, she stayed in clear light meditation for a few days, which shows that she was a very advanced practitioner. Although on the outside she was took the aspect of being a very simple, sort of humble sort of person. So these things are powerful, really powerful to transform the mind over time. But you do need an element of devotion and faith. That's also important too. And look, that just comes with time and practice. Or some people have, if you believe in past lives, I can say, that can come from, you've already come into this life with that faith and devotion. Other people in this life, there's probably a much more analytical in the thought process, more cynical, for example. So that takes longer. And sort of Buddhism sort of actually has things that cater for the different sorts of people. So for example, we can do analytical meditations. And I haven't done one of those yet, but for example, we can do an analytical meditation so it's developing love and compassion. So for example, we could start with think, okay, to equalise your attitude, how you see others. You say, look, if I look at myself and I look at others, we're all completely equal in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. So you can start to analyse that. Is my mother like that? Is my brother like that? Is my spouse like that? Are my children like that? Am I like that? And so you start to get, you start to generate that. So although the process starts in your head, it's an analytical process, you'll get to a point where something shifts in your heart. Right? At that point. So that's like a realisation or a glimmer of wisdom. When you get to that point, you stop the analytical process and you just focus on that feeling that you've generated your heart, and you hold it as long as you can. And when it starts to dissipate, then you might go back to that again to build again, or it might be time to finish your meditation, for example. So there's lots of different ways to work in terms of developing that wisdom, whether it's through the reciting mantra with lots of faith and devotion, whether it's through an analytical process, whether it's, say, a combination of those things, plus you're doing meditations on visualizations and meditational deities. There's a huge range of things there. And obviously, they're different for what suits each individual is different, and also what stage you're at. Also, of course, the things become different as well. And so that's part of the life journey. And especially if you get to meet a qualified teacher like Geshe Doga, or his Dalai Lama or Lama Zopa, for example, then you can sort of say, and you develop some faith, go and get advice from them, and go from there, see what you can do. But don't go hard on yourself. We're beginners. We've got to be relaxed. And it'll gradually work. Okay, any more questions? Was that enough? Any other questions?
When you work with a mantra, do you actually have to recite it with your lips, or is it enough to think the words?
Okay, so the question is, if we're doing mantra, does there need to be a physical verbal recitation, or can we do a mental recitation? For beginners, we'll do physical recitation. For someone who's advanced, yes, they can definitely do mental recitation. Yes, because it's a vibration that we're tuning into. So yes, it can be done as a mental recitation. But initially, it's without a doubt, it's a verbal recitation. Yeah, and what you'll find is because you're not used to that energy, we might say, some might say, look, do 100,000 of these. And initially you're very slow at it. But what happens over a period of time, as that energy builds, and if you like, in terms of modern science, we create the neural pathways, that'll get quicker and quicker, and you'll get more familiar with that energy. So we'll get quicker, and we'll also get finer and more subtle. You know, the concentration will become deeper with that mantra as well. And so look, there are, for example, Lama Yeshe in particular used to get people to do this mantra called Vajrasattva. And it's a 100-syllable mantra, and it was a 3-month retreat. And so you do it in the rainy season, monsoon in Dharamsala. This was before these sorts of places were set up too much. So you go and do a 3-month retreat for that. And yeah, and what that mantra would do, all the mantras do, is a couple of things. One, they're bringing up a lot of negative energy, purifying that, clearing that out of your system, and also building up your positive energy as well. And so you get to develop more inner wisdom, more understanding. But you certainly, in a process like that, you certainly you have good days and bad days. And that's part of the process. And you try to keep silence as much as you can. So you're not distracting your mind with things that you shouldn't distract your mind, just as much as possible. Have a 100% focus. And that's very powerful. Occasionally in Australia there are things like weekend courses or little weekend retreats or things like that. I know, for example, in Bendigo they've got a Chinese retreat, I think from Boxing Day to New Year, for example, led by a senior monk. So that's an example somewhere you go to that, and do the visualisation. And there'll be a bunch of prayers that go with it, formal prayers, formal visualisation, mantra recitation, and you have maybe 4 sessions a day, a couple of hours each. Your meals provided, and it's not a bad way to spend that time of year if you've got the freedom to do that and the interest to do that. Okay, a couple more minutes, and any other questions? It's like at the auction, isn't it? Waiting for someone to put another bid in. I suppose we could finish very slightly early, but I remember there are some scones in the kitchen today. There's some leftovers from the open day yesterday, and they've been put aside for us. And then I know in the fridge there's some cream and jam. So whoever's first out there, get the cream and the jam out. The scones are already on the tables. I put them there. And there's a sign saying there for us. Now, before we finish, we're going to do a dedication. In other words, all this positive energy we've created today, and in the past as well, it doesn't have to be today, but I feel like we've done some really nice stuff today. And for me, it's been good. Let's direct that. We set a goal at the beginning of the session today, so let's direct that becomes a cause for ourselves and all living beings to find complete happiness, complete and perfect happiness, and to be able to become free or remove all the inner faults that we may have within ourselves. And that ultimately we can get to a point where we've completely and utterly actualised our Buddha potential or Buddha nature, so that we've become what we can call an enlightened being, in other words, someone free of faults, someone with all their qualities developed, with the purpose of being able to help all the other beings who are yet to get there. Okay, thank you everyone for coming tonight and your attention. I'll stay around for a little while and go and have a cup of tea. So you're most welcome to have a cup of tea, or you can run home and enjoy yourself there. I'll be back again next week. I think it's the last of my ones. And in December it's another person leading them. And Dennis will be good. So thanks everyone.